Are you ready to untangle from your past, recover from heartbreak, and revive your life? This is Soul CPR with your host, Ann Papayoti. We've all had soul-crushing experiences and lost ourselves in our pain, but there is a way out. On this podcast, Amazon best-selling author, award-winning life coach, and advice columnist Ann Papayoti helps us navigate the path from heartbreak to healing. So now, please welcome the host of Soul CPR, Ann Papayoti.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show. I'm so happy that you have tuned in. I have an amazing show for you today with an incredible guest whose story I am certain will inspire you. But first, I received a text today from a listener and something I wanted to give a shout out to. She had listened to the previous show about human trafficking, and she sent me this. There's a Canadian company, Day and Ross, saying that they have renewed their Freedom Driver sponsorship of TAT, known as Truckers Against Trafficking. For the fourth year in a row, Day and Ross is giving $100,000 to help TAT continue their mission, ending human trafficking across North America. So thank you to Day and Ross. We want to give a shout out to you, and thank you to Kimberly, the listener, who let me know about this phenomenal donation and effort by Day and Ross. So we greatly appreciate that. So on to today's show. This is truly about one woman's transformational journey. And as we said in the title of the show, it really is from shadows to light. Her journey will captivate you. It will inspire you as it did me. I only had a few minutes with her. We planned a few minutes, but it actually went about 45 minutes as we got to know one another and truly felt connected at the soul level from our past experiences. She's experienced childhood trauma. She's experienced workplace bullying as well as that from childhood and in the school. And then, of course, a toxic marriage. So if you've experienced any of those kinds of difficult relationships at any time in your life, I think you're going to find her relatable and inspiring on how she went on her own self-empowerment and healing journey, and how now she helps others do the same. Though talking about this all out loud and sharing her story is quite new. So that takes courage. It is a very different place of vulnerability, as I've talked about in the past. So I'm very pleased to have her with me on the show today. Shelli Roberts is now a life alchemist, a transformational energy healer, and a success strategist, helping others who feel awakened to live life differently, to get more out of life, as she says, who are feeling the call to be, do, and have more. So Shelli, welcome to the show.
It is such a pleasure to be here with you, Anne. Thank you for having me.
No, it is certainly my pleasure to have you. So let's go back and start with those initial relationships that certainly shaped, and as you talk about your identity early on. So the school place bullying. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I had and this was in my elementary school years. I had a young boy who was apparently interested in me, but had a really tough way of showing it. In talking about it with counselors and therapists and coaches and that kind of thing as I went through life later on, they said, "Oh, a narcissist in the making," and I said, "Could be, maybe. Haven't stayed in touch with them." But him and his friend every single day after school would intercept me because we had the same walk home, and literally rip the bag off of the back of my shoulder, my book bag, and then grab my hands behind my back and hold them in place, and literally like you're walking down a plank, except we were walking down the street. And I got to a point where I was dreading going home. I was finding, trying to find ways to avoid them, but they would wait every day. And this went on every single day after school through, I think it was like second through sixth grade,
Wow.
every single day.
Mm.
So from that experience, and telling the teachers and my parents and that kind of thing, they were like, "Ooh, somebody likes you." Ooh, and it was passed off.
Yeah.
Fast forward into my adult years, I built a long tolerance, right, from that
Hmm.
experience, because you resign yourself. You're disempowered from being able to do anything on your own behalf, and your means for soliciting higher order help from adults in the situation was unsuccessful. And I was just like, what do you
Yeah.
do? Right.
Right.
So moving into adulthood, I was disconnected in high school and college years from others. People hurt me. I'm not going to connect. So became very insular and introverted. And then into my final years of college, met the person that I would end up marrying and having a daughter with. And in that situation, I witnessed a shift in identity that was so profound in this individual, because when I met him, he was active duty military and was very referenced in his identity to that culture, right? But then when he married me and got out of active duty, turned back into the person that he grew up as. And it was a very different person and incredibly narcissistic.
Mhm.
Um, so I didn't see that. And I guess you don't. Nobody does. They get charmed in the beginning, right? That's how it
Um,
always starts, right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Unfortunate. Yeah, unfortunately, you don't see it coming until you're already in it and hooked, right? So we got married probably a little too quickly.
Mm.
And at that point, it just evolved into ugliness that got more and more and more ugly as we went down the road. Um, I've heard of others who stuck it out longer than me in their grief and anger and everything else. It was a 7-year journey for me.
Mm.
When my daughter was two, almost three, is when I divorced him. But this was after having PTSD that put me into stress related breakdowns 3 times in the hospital.
Mm. Wow.
So yeah, the constant criticism and then hitting the glass ceilings at work. And then, on top of that, as you mentioned, bullying in the workplace.
Right.
After I went through this experience with him, um, daily criticism about every single thing starts to wear you down. And when you're trying very hard to be a good partner and a good wife, whatever that looks like for you, you like, I'm trying. Like any narcissist, it's not ever going to be enough, right? Because it's not about you. And
Yeah.
so I was a puddle of a human at the end of that experience, and
Mm.
and literally had no self-confidence, no inner strength or resilience. I had no reserves left emotionally. Moving
So,
forward, I didn't
yeah,
get out of that. He
you
took me
did
to
that.
court 3 or 4 times. So I'm like, it just goes on and on. As my daughter grew up, he one of the court cases was for custody, and in that case, he lost the case, or won the case. Actually, had a whole bunch of. She still lived with me,
Mhm.
but had a whole bunch of restrictions placed on her. So basically, all of her time that was not in school was with him. So she slept in my house, but that was about it, right? The rest of her time at that young age, preteen and then into early teenage years, was all his indoctrination and his abuse, because he was being even more abusive with her, which I was not privy to. She could not tell me about it.
Mhm.
So he tanked our relationship. It was a living hell with her lashing out as a teenager because she was still living with me, and I got the backlash from all of his abuse in my environment at home.
Mhm.
And we have a damaged relationship to this day. So, and then moving forward into the workplace, recapturing my sense of competence and self assurance. When people see, at the time, it's less tolerated now, but at the time, there were people who were looking for their own power at somebody else's expense. And so they find an easy target. And that was me at the time, because I didn't push back. I was like, you're in a position of authority, whatever. So again, I tolerated. Um,
And let's take that and let's go back to elementary school, that easy target, because I think so many people are going to relate, and as they're listening, they're going back to their own experiences for a moment. And when you go back to that second to sixth grade, having that same experience every day, and I heard you doing exactly the right things, exactly what we tell someone, and you were telling people who should have been able to help you make a change in this, right? Should have been able to make the difference and to create a different dynamic for you. Yet the same experience kept happening, and they were now creating a different identity for you. Like you said, that tolerance, really defining what it looks like for someone to care about you. That's
yeah,
what I heard. Somebody really likes you who treats you this way, setting you up for, right, love
yeah,
to be defined in that way. So I want people to hear this because I deal with a lot of abuse later in life, right? So it's those uh, adult consequences of childhood experiences that I'm hearing from you, all the way up until till all the way up to work. So from that childhood experience, and I know when you and I had our private conversation, something changed in you though when you went to high school, and there was yet another experience, because somehow what we know happens for a lot of bullied kids, when they lose their self-esteem and their ability to have power, they also start faltering in school. But you remained a good student and all, but what happened for a lot of us at school, we don't have our parents and all, and we're trying to find our way with our peers. You went to high school, your dad was there, and you found a peer group to fit in with, but it wasn't the right peer group. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that also is going to impact the rest of your story a bit. Can you share that with our listeners?
absolutely. Yeah, that was unfortunate. My dad was a teacher, and he was a teacher in the same school district for most of my growing up years, and then decided to was having trouble himself, I guess, in the school that he was at, and decided to get away from the administrator that he was struggling with. So he went to another school in our school district, which was the one I was going to at the time. And he was new there and having to prove himself in the last year, maybe two, that I was at that school. And I had been in the doing fine in terms of grades and whatnot, but he wasn't privy to the social dynamic that I was dealing with until, as you're pointing out, he moved there to be a part of the school and the administration. So now his peer groups and the people whose opinions that mattered to him were right there in the same school environment that I was going in. So he was a coach and was coaching. He started out with golf, I think, at the other school, and kept that role, I believe. I might be wrong. But then basketball, women's basketball, I was struggling on the team, and apparently he was embarrassed by my inability to be very good at basketball, because he was a basketball coach, and my sister was going to the school, younger sister, came into the school in the first year that he was there as a basketball coach. And so she had an interesting dynamic with him being in the same school. And oh, by the way, she was on the team. So this
Mm.
family dynamic after my parents divorced in high school was an interesting one because my mom had left after the divorce. We were still living with my dad in the house. And so estranged from our mom, more or less, because she basically just walked away and said, "Hey, I'm available to you. Reach out anytime." And I was like, I'm going to do that. Thank you for supporting me all these years.
Yeah.
Right. So in the high school environment, the people that I fit in with were we have our cliques, and ours was called the burnout clique. These are people that hung out in the smoking lounge, cut school to do other things. I was not one of them. But that's what they did. And they weren't committed to their studies. They were more committed to their whatever their pastimes were, music or art or, whatever. They were creatives too. And they had challenges of their own in the home front. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so here my dad is a teacher now. He teaches math, a subject I had always struggled in. Right. And so it wasn't good enough in terms of his view of my ability to do his subject. I wasn't good enough in terms of his new peer group, and also didn't make him look good as in his area of interest, which was sports. So I became the daughter who was disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to this day, in the back of his mind, I'm the disappointing daughter, actually by all measures very successful, but I'm
Right.
still a disappointing daughter to him. It's unfortunate, but
So there's those underlying messages that you're coming up with, right? I'm not good enough. I'm a disappointment. And carrying that through as you move into that next level of young adulthood and move towards love and marriage and that next level of identity, if you will. Shelli, it's time for our first break. And when we come back, we're going to start talking more about moving into that phase of your life and what you experience there. So, listeners, don't go far. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Ann Papayotti. This is Soul CPR on Bold Brave TV, and I'm joined today by Shelli Roberts. And Shelli and I are talking about her journey moving towards personal transformation. Right now, we are still sharing the traumas that she endured. And Shelli, before the break, you mentioned that you stayed in your marriage that you told us about started one way before you recognized, how none of us do in the beginning, that we are indeed committing to a narcissist. But you stayed about 7 years and then divorced when your daughter was 2, almost 3. That was the same for me. I was 8 years, and so we got that in common too, and going through those years. And then I unfortunately allowed my ex to continue controlling my life for a few years beyond that. And I guess similarly, in that was happening with you because of your daughter living with him, which was one of my biggest fears, was that was what was going to happen with my son. I had one child at the time. But please clarify for all of us this workplace toxicity that was happening, and these dominating relationships there. Was this happening before, during, or after the divorce at work?
So I think throughout, my work experience was one where this not enoughness theme came through as proving I could do it, proving that I was enough, proving that I had what it takes. And so I ended up trying very hard to make sure that, and my own personal integrity was driving me as well, to make sure that I would meet the deadline, or I would have the level of quality, or, whatever it was. So and I didn't engage in workplace drama and personalities and gossip. And so that made me different. In very many organizations that I'm aware of, the person who is different is seen as either a threat when they're capable and competent, or somebody that needs to be excluded and literally bullied or pressured out of the group. And that's what was happening with me. Was I was threatening to the senior leadership at the time. They'd been doing the nature of the work that I'd been doing for a lot longer than me, and they felt like they needed to prove, but I was much, much smarter. They didn't have a college degree. I had a master's degree. So there was a degree of threatening there. So I ran into this dynamic at work where I was being made fun of, and literally to my face, around other people for the benefit of other people. And I just was like, I had to stay above it. But it does wear on you, right? It wears on you a lot, because you don't deserve it. But you're not the one in a position of power. So what else can you do? And the answer is you can be who you are unapologetically. But it does wear on you. You wonder, what more can you be doing that you're not doing? And who else can you talk to help you with this dynamic? Later on, it became, there were more rules and laws and policy put in place that say, creating a toxic work environment like that is not okay. And will not be tolerated. And so eventually, now we talk about things like micro triggers. Um, we evolve, hopefully, in the right direction, but it happened throughout. And one of the reasons why I landed in a stress-related mental breakdown was because of the ambiguity of the workplace, the lack of expectations, and a lack of a social dynamic of support and guidance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that what I took away from that experience was that you can try until you're blue in the face, but without having an understanding of what the parameters of success are for you in a work environment, creating your own success standard is not going to cut it, because you're dealing with the expectations of others that are uncommunicated, right? So
Yeah.
that's super, super hard. How do you succeed in that environment? Which I plant that seed because that's part of the reason why I evolved into what I do today.
Yeah.
My background experience, as you know, but also I feel like I did crack that code eventually.
Fantastic. And we're gonna talk about that next. I do want to say, and you said that so beautifully, and I bet people are going, that when they're listening. That's it.
I wish it wasn't so common, but it is.
But it is. And when you go back, and some people don't experience anything toxic until they're an adult. However, mental health research does suggest that bullying, that childhood bullying, it can be as harmful as child abuse
Mhm.
long term. So that is carried into adulthood and sometimes makes you were talking about that easy target, makes people the easy target at work or with an intimate partner. So these types of things, and that self-esteem, that not being good enough, and here you were that person that was succeeding. You got the higher education. You're one of those people that, I'm going to prove I'm good enough on some level, while inside it might not have been quite there, but you were always working on that, which will be part of what we're going to talk about in a minute. But anxiety, depression, self-esteem issues, lifelong triggers, PTSD, trust issues,
Oh yeah.
and anger issues for some, right, are things that people might deal with their whole life long, from this starting in childhood and then becoming these easy targets, and then having these patterns of abusive relationships carry on throughout their lives, again, in from school to work to marriage to other relationships. But anyway, having said that, and then of course you had the breakdown, right? More than one, where you needed now medical intervention. And that is the extreme, but you are certainly not isolated in that experience. It is, as you said, more common than we'd like to think. But that, you said, as you said, you planted the seed to do what you do now. So tell us about this transformational journey of healing and empowerment that's got you where you are now and on the road to also helping others. But tell us first how you helped yourself.
I was in a place where my daughter was in her teenage years, and she was lashing out from her experience. She wasn't listening to authority. She wasn't listening to me. She was living in my house, but she was taking advantage of the fact and decided that it was her house too, and she didn't need to listen to me. So there were things going on in my house that were putting me into a place of despair as a mother, as an adult, as a responsible caregiver, and everything else that I was just completely conflicted about and in complete despair over. Um, we didn't resolve it. I had to literally just power through it and pray and be mindful of what I want instead. What do I want? Because right now in this moment, I don't want this, but I feel powerless to do anything about it. She's not listening. The choices that I had were all bad ones. I did have choices. You always have choices. I have to say that. But all the choices I felt like I had were all bad ones. It came to a culmination when one night she had held a day drink at my house that I came home to, and it was extending into the early evening, and literally I couldn't get rid of these kids. Um, they had been drinking a lot, and she that evening ended up trying to kill herself with drinking too much and taking pills. So we wake up in the morning, and she has literally um, in a coma state, was breathing, but was not conscious, and that was a catalyst for me in a lot of ways. Got her to the hospital, but I had a barrage of questions from the police, like I was the one in the wrong, and on a legal level, having a day drink was probably wrong. In fact, I will say that it was completely inappropriate. However, um, the other things that they brought into the foreground, I was like, are you going to book me or not? Because I don't appreciate this interrogation. And it was awful for me to be having that put in front of me, and literally being blamed again for somewhere that I didn't measure up. And oh, by the way, the more important thing is that my daughter is sitting in a coma in the intensive care unit. I'd much rather be there by her side, right? So this, what I was considering a distraction for water under the bridge, and my top priority and my most important thing was her and her well-being. And that's what had put me in so much despair, is that because I was recognizing behavior that did not demonstrate that she had balanced well-being, right? But again, I had no ability to help her get into her psyche, her, what was going on inside of her. She refused to share. So that was another area where I was called into my calling in this capacity as a healer and coach, to have and make available what I didn't have when I was going through it. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the awareness. I didn't have the knowledge. I just didn't have anything. I just felt so alone and ill prepared and out of my depth and in despair. And in my journey, she eventually grew out of all of that. But in my journey, and I have to say, suffered her own mental breakdown when she turned 21. So it's one of those things where you look back and what could you have done different? And I'm like, well, it is what it was, and you made the best decisions based on where you were at that point in time. So give yourself some grace. But my healing journey was one of first of all, self-awareness and recognizing that there's a theme to my life. And there has been this whole repression and not enoughness, overcoming a self-identity of I don't matter. All of that has, as you're pointing out, it influenced my experience throughout my entire life, regardless of where it came from or, what the seeds of it were. And I believe what was most catalyzing for me was when I discovered my human design chart and then the associated gene keys chart, where it tells you the energetics inside of you that you were born with, and that, how you're wired to experience the world. And then your gene keys chart shows you your activation pathways that you will be experiencing throughout your lifetime in your clawing out of the darkness and into the light. And you can believe it or not, but at the end of the day, you are in charge of your own experience. You are in charge of the decisions that you make. You are in charge of your mindset and how you are perceiving things, and you have choices to change all of that. And when I came into a place where I was able to recognize that, yes, I am creating my own reality, and this is not the reality I want, I got busy saying, what do I need to do? Come in, spirit guides, and show me the way. What do I need to do in order to release all of these things so that I can have the experience of light and love that we are meant to have here on this earth plane? I truly believe that.
What a beautiful thing. So you went on a journey of your daughter was that turning point for you, your daughter's experience to say, heal myself so I can help her heal, so I can and now and heal others. So what was the first thing? Because you're now you've got several certifications in holistic therapies, but what was the first thing for you? And you mentioned some charts there, but what was the very first thing you did for yourself?
I would say exploring the energy healing, and I took a year-long shamanic uh, training, which helped to open up all of my clairs and get me in touch with my intuition in a big, big way. Um, it's only been expanding with the ongoing use and utilization, to the extent that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt at any given moment how supported I am by the divine, which is a beautiful, beautiful, just amazing feeling to know that not only are you not alone, you are so loved and supported beyond any measure that you can even fathom. So that's pretty huge. But to your point on how what I did inside of me, the first step is always to recognize what's going on inside of you and being aware of it, like
Mm-hmm.
front and center in your consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and getting out of the reaction and victim mode and mindset. So that's step number one. And the turning point that I had to make was, I'm tired of being this victim of everybody else's challenges. What do I need to do in order to be stepping into my own personal power and not being subjected to all of this? I had no idea that I was emanating this energy of, abuse me. And until I shifted that, and you have to realize that that's what's happening first. When you shift that, you shift your entire experience.
Yeah.
It's the truth. The key, though, is knowing yourself so well. And that's where the self work comes in, where you discover more and more about things like your inner wiring, things like your. I did energetic work in the Akashic records for lineage and past lives. Literally, what are these patterns that I'm bringing forward, and what do I need to be doing about them to release them so I don't continue to have this experience? When I did that, I did a VIP session with a very, very strong Akashic record practitioner. And I said, I need to get rid of and repattern and bring to neutral all of these bullying, repression, from all perspectives. So the victim, the perpetrator, the person looking on and cheering on the sideline, not doing anything. I mean, all of the different perspectives. I want to bring that into neutral. How can we release the inner charges? And so literally she did I think it was almost a 2-hour long session. And at the end of that session, I felt like a 300-ton gorilla stood up, and my lightness
Wow.
was like a floating balloon, and it didn't
Um,
go away. It was gone. It was gone. All the triggers associated with that dynamic were gone. All of the experiences that I was having in the workplace were gone. I was like a brand new freaking person, and it was astounding. It was just astounding. But the first
Ladies,
key was recognizing that that was something that was a pattern and a trend in my experience.
there you go. That is what we call um, the gift of shift, ladies and gentlemen, right there. And all change, as we've said so many times on this show, begins with awareness. And that is what Shelli just so eloquently said. Self awareness leads to self mastery. It is time for our second break. Don't go far. We'll be back with more with Shelli and Soul CPR.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Shelli Roberts today and her experiences through trauma that have left trauma, and left her on her own pathway to healing. And on that pathway, she's experienced some major transformations. And she was just sharing with us that everything started with awareness. And then I summed it up into then some self mastery. So knowing thyself. So Shelli, I know that you have learned a lot about why you had to go through what you've gone through, and you've actually written a book. So tell us all about this combination of things, if you would.
On my journey, I was like, okay, I came to the realization that it's all, from your soul's perspective, it's all learning and growing and evolving, right? There's no judgment or anything bad, although it was a super hard journey. And we all have those challenges in our lives. And so when I was able to get a little bit after I did a lot of inner work and healing of the wounds, and then repatterning my thought process. I mean, there's a lot that went into it. Um, and everybody's in a different place. I mean, they need different things, right? Because everybody's got different experiences and they're in a different place in their own journeys. I got to a point where I was like, why did I have to go through all of this? Why did it have to be so hard? And I had a session where I was delving in. I had a medium holding space for me. And what came through for me from my guides was, well, you didn't have to go through all of that. And I was like, wait, what?
Because
Wait,
I think
what?
a lot of people ask the question, why? And then they think there's, we all are taught there's a reason for everything. So I want to hear this. You didn't, you didn't have to go through this.
um, we're here for a particular reason, and what was a profound realization for me on my journey is that your gene keys chart shows you what that reason is, and the vocation key, if you're familiar at all, the vocation key shows you why you came in to what you came in to heal in this lifetime, because healing is one of the things that your soul intends to do when you come in. And I had the key that said, well, you're here to heal the sum total of human suffering.
Sounds like a
Whoa,
tall order, Shelli. That's a
I
tall
know, right? And then my life work was to transmute all of that and transform it and release it and literally don your light body. So what all that means energetically is that you have to dig in deep and repattern your thought processes, release all of the trauma that you've got stored in your body. You need to have a level of awareness of yourself so that you can no longer live your experience through the lens of trauma and repattern it so that you're coming from a place of your authentic self. When you're able to release all of that and shed the glasses of trauma from your experience and really come in from a place of, I know who I am, I know what I am in this world, I know what I'm here to provide and to who, you are in a place of self-empowerment like no one else has, beside you has experienced, right? We're all evolving in this journey, but very few folks have that level of inner knowing and inner self-awareness. Even folks who are super, super uber successful have their own self-doubts that they run into. The difference, though, may be that they power through them, right? They don't let other people see the mushy stuff under the surface. And they may still continue to show up as the person that they always have been, an unhealed version of who we are. So my encouragement in this existential why, tough order, as you say, is, well, you do what you can, and in service and in integrity. And when you do, you've got a ripple effect that you can never know. And especially, when you write a book, you put it out there, but you don't necessarily know who you've impacted unless they come back and say, hey, I loved this, it was life-changing, or whatever their feedback is. So my cathartic experience was sitting down to try and write my story, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't talk about it. As you pointed out earlier, I couldn't talk about it. Not even like the little paragraph of "Hi, I'm Shelli" and the ebooks for free gifts. I couldn't even do that, right? It was too hard. So I had to get to a place where, what is it, serving from the wound or the scar instead of the wound? Yeah. My last issue, when I got recertified as a coach, recertified because I have two. My last issue that I was addressing as part of that certification was what you pointed out, and that was trust. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust the universe, right? And that's the existential. Why did I have to go through all of this? I wasn't trusting. Why did I, the
Yeah.
answer that came back to me, and why did I have to go through all of this? And the answer is you don't, is it all depends on your perspective and where you're coming from and how your brain is translating, right, your experiences into meaning and explaining in stories. When you recognize that you're believing your own stories and the stories may not be true,
Mhm.
you take two steps back and you go, oh my gosh, what if I were so powerful that I could wave a magic wand and change this whole situation into something that I do want? What is the step number one that I can take in order to move in that direction and commit to that direction, and then don't look back as you plow forward in that direction? The energy follows you.
Yeah.
The energy follows you, right? You have
Absolutely.
set the intention and you have set your course, and that commitment and that will is your wand is what brings it forward for you. Now, it's not necessarily automatic, as we all know, but it's that commitment to that ongoing path and that ongoing journey. And I've been on this coaching path for, I'm on year number 6. Look, overcoming that trust was a big thing for me, and that breakthrough happened when I sat down to write the book, and one book became 3, by the way.
Awesome. So tell us about what's the title or titles of your books?
So there's a page on my website, which we'll get to later, but it's the first one is called Indomitable. It's my healing journey, and it lays out. Um, I was in a place where I couldn't see the forest for the trees. I was so involved in my despair that I couldn't see, um, you know, what I needed to shift internally. When you get out of that place and you're looking back at, hopefully you get out of it. I hope to God that people don't have a level of tolerance that forces them to stay into such a horrible situation. Um, but when you're able to look back and separate yourself from it, then you are in a place where you can make conscious decisions about the journey and the experience that you do want to have. And then forgive yourself and recognize that a lot of this is you reacting to what was serving up from where you were at that point in time, right? So you can shift all of that. You can raise your self awareness. You can change your mindset around it. You can literally change your entire experience through shifting your awareness and your energetics around it. So when you get into a place, as you say, self mastery, where you can recognize these things and then know what to do about them instead of being in a place of just reacting, just being triggered. Here it is again. I don't know what to do with it. I'm going to react the same way.
Mhm.
If you get out of that pattern and take a step above it, and look down at it and say, okay, this isn't what I want, but what do I want instead? Um, that is incredibly empowering. And that's just one technique. But the book is called Indomitable. My healing journey is a story, but it is also intended to provide self help coaching and that kind of thing. So I intend to, it's not published yet. I intend to have an accompanying workbook or webpage that's got those kind of information sources and coaching resources. So it's intended to be a DIY, a resource that I didn't have. And then, of course, there's other coaches out there who are trauma informed. My
Mhm.
energy healing certainly can assist, and I have that experience in the trauma domain. Although I wouldn't call myself trauma informed, but not a trauma expert yet. I'm taking classes.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, so I'm setting myself up to be of service in a way. My mess is my message at this point, and
Yeah.
I resisted it in a big way. I didn't want to be in the darkness of my own experience, and certainly not necessarily in the darkness of others' experience too. And my higher self came forward and she said, "Yeah, but that's why you're here." And I'm like,
Mhm. Remember, that's why we're here. So tell
"Yeah."
me about, I love Indomitable. I love the title, and I love what your plans are with that as it becomes published. And go ahead and tell me about the other 2 books, because we're going to. we have permission to keep going. So keep going.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh yeah.
The other one is more about the existential why and the shifting of the energy in your consciousness. So goes into it's intended to be less coaching and more inspirational. It's
Okay.
focused on the why did I need to go through all this, and a little bit of actually a lot of bit of my perspective on things like my incarnation cross in my human design chart. I was born on the incarnation cross of oppression. No
Okay.
surprise there, right? That was my whole life experience.
I'm going to
But
say lots of repression and repression. Yeah, yeah. So
yes,
finding your voice is big. I think just in writing the books, even it's is
it's so true.
representative of coming out of repression. Yes. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that one is going to be more about how to shift into a higher frequency so that you experience, the life that you do want to be living instead of the life that you have been living. That's either been, not so great, traumatizing, or, if you're clawing out of that, there's techniques available to help do this more quickly than what I experienced through my lifetime. Speed it up.
Exactly. That's why I do what I do too, to help people. But take the shortcut because I took the long and winding road, I believe. So, and tell us about the third book.
So the third one was the one that I thought I was writing, and that was the modality, the combination of insights and practices. So I was thinking that that would be the book. When I stood up my practice, it was literally, I'm going to write a book, and it's going to be about my modality and how I do it and what I do. And that one is like, happened before I came across energy healing. And there are more and more books coming out on various parts of the connection between mind, body, and spirit and healing.
Mhm.
And I'm loving this trend in the holistic healing space. I'm absolutely loving it. Epigenetics, I think, is going to be huge. And so I would say that one is the least developed, even though it was the first one conceived, because this whole area is expanding in ways that we can't even remotely fathom. And so that one is called Joyful Transformation. And it was intended to be a book on what my modality is, but I got to tell you, it's shifting so fast that it'd be hard to write it down at this point.
Well, it once you got inspired to share, it sounds like it became a wellspring from your experiences, your knowledge, and healing modalities. And so this has developed into three books. And are any of them published yet, or are they all in process? And where and when will they be available? Can you share that?
Yeah, the Indomitable is the one. I have a book contract with Balboa Press, which is an arm of Hay House, which I'm very excited about. Um,
Yes.
I'm thinking probably the beginning of next year, middle of next year. I'm still in the writing phase of that one, and that
Okay.
one's the most furthest along. And the way that I work is in like multi-dimensionally. And so literally what my experience with writing has been, I've got very fleshed out and detailed outlines with talking points on the things that I want to write about. I've got templates. So I let the energy flow,
Mhm.
because it is channeled and guided the entire way. And so I just let the energy flow the way that it needs to. And so I end up focusing on one book and multiple chapters and worksheets and instructions. And then I get an inspiration that says, nope, go this way, and shift gears on the other book and then do the same thing for a while. And then recently what happened was, oh, you need to do a course on this, do a mini course on this one piece of it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. So yes,
Yes.
you're taking it and you're breaking up and following the guidance, and I love that.
Yeah.
So eventually they'll be available on. So let's tell people how to find you in general, so they can connect with you. Where?
I would say the best way to do that is through my website. It's joyfultransformation.life. There is a free resources tab, and this episode will be published there and probably on a blog. I have a blog site as well. And then also the login tab is the button goes to my course site. So there's 2 free resources, mini courses, one on intuition and one on crafting your life manifesto, your personal manifesto, which is a kickstart to learning what's most important to you and what you value the most, and then crafting that into what amounts to your life statement for yourself, your North Star, if you will. So that's a free workshop on there. And then there are other courses, mini courses that are for purchase. And if I can offer your audience a 50% off code, great. Use Soul CPR, 50% off on a paid course for your audience. So yeah, that's the best way. The contact page goes straight into my inbox. So that's probably the easiest, most efficient way. I'm on YouTube as well, and I'm fleshing out that channel with my game plan is to continue the speaking trend on mini snippets that I provide, teachings and perspectives, and also publishing the podcasts that I have the honor of speaking on. And then yeah, that's probably the best way. I have a Facebook page. I'm not as active there at the moment.
All right. Well, all of that will be in the show notes. And thank you so much for the 50% off for the listeners. Guys, did y'all hear that? Please check out her website. Say the website one more time for us.
Joyful Transformation, one word, .life.
.life. We'll make sure that we get that into the show notes. Thank you so much. Find Shelli on YouTube. You're also on LinkedIn, correct?
I am. Shelli Roberts. There's quite a few. It's, I guess, a common name, even though I spell it with an I. So there's quite a few of us. My day job is on there. So if you're interested in the depth of experience that I have, I don't publish the energy healing work on there as much. It's more like the professional community and my day job community. So looking for those communities that do the spiritual work, and I think that they're coming forward, and that's very exciting to me as well.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your being on the show today. If you had a key takeaway message for the audience, what would it be, Shelli?
Oh my goodness. Do the healing work. It is so worth it in the end. You come into a place of such incredible self-knowing. Indomitability is the word I would use. That you're not going to weeble or wobble. You're going to stand tall in who you are, and your entire life experience changes as a result of being in that place. So it is so well worth taking the steps and doing the inner work. Mm-hmm.
And they're all worth it, right? We're all worth doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being on the show today. That's all the time we have. Thank you, Dan, for being back in the studio and keeping us on the air as always. And to the listeners, if you enjoyed this show, this podcast, please share it with others. And for anyone who may need a lifeline of their own, remember that healing is not a linear journey. It is a process of profound transformation, as Shelli shared her story with us today. And you know where to find me, connect with me on social media. On Facebook, it's Skyview Coaching, and on all the other Instagram, LinkedIn, and X, it's going to be at Ann Papayotti. And there's my website, skyviewcoaching.com. You can scan the QR code there to go to my website and my book, The Gift of Shift. And we talked a lot about shifting today, and that is all about the changing the mindset, as Shelli implied, is so, so important. So everyone, as always, breathe deeply, love openly, and live soulfully. See you next time.
This has been Soul CPR with host Ann Papayotti. Breathe life back into your spirit with each episode, where she and special guests explore the relationships that hurt us and discover that healing can only begin with you. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.